Namaste to everyone. Most of the countries in the world are now in lockdown due to COVID-19 pandemic. This situation has led me to explore and learn quite a lot about all that goes into virtual presentation. I am really thankful to the organizers of Pharmacology and Drug Development Congress for giving me this wonderful opportunity to present in this plenary session. All of us are well aware that we are all living in the era of multi-drug resistant and pan-drug resistant organisms. How are we going to tackle the infections caused by multi-drug and pan-drug resistant organisms? So this is the topic I have chosen for plenary session. Role of nanoantibiotics in the treatment of infectious disease due to drug-resistant pathogens. I am Dr. Kalyani, Professor and Head, Department of Microbiology from Savitha Medical College, Chennai, from India. These are my objectives. I am going to talk on introduction, properties and characteristics of nanoparticles, advantages of nanoparticles and disadvantages of nanoparticles, applications, types of nanoparticles, techniques of preparations of nanoparticles, nanoparticles for drug delivery, then metal-based nanoparticles used for treatment of infectious diseases, our experience with nanoparticles and references. To introduce, all of us know that the health challenge, the most health challenge we are facing today is due to the emergence of multi-drug and pan-drug resistant organisms. The antimicrobial resistance is now the second leading cause of death throughout the world. There are limited antibiotic options for infections caused by these pan-drug and multi-drug resistant organisms. The disadvantages of existing antibiotics are antimicrobial agents are partial or poor absorption in the blood, overusage, self-medication. In few countries, they are available over the counter. The other side effects are like nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, etc. These limitations pave path for nanotechnology in controlling infectious diseases and overcoming antibiotic resistant pathogens, and also they play a major role in immunization and also in cancer treatment. So what are nanoparticles? Nanoparticles are sub-nano-sized colloidal particles composed of synthetic or semi-synthetic polymers ranging from 10 to 1000 nanometers in diameter. The application of nanoparticles provides a potential strategy to manage infections caused by multi-drug resistant organisms. The mode of action of nanoparticles is direct contact with the bacterial cell wall without need to penetrate the cell. Actually, the drug resistance due to the antimicrobial agents we are using day-to-day life is either it can be chromosomal or plasmid mediated. So these drug resistant mechanisms will not affect the drugs which are incorporated with the nanoparticles. The nanoparticles exhibiting antibacterial activities can target multiple biomolecules and have the potential to reduce or eliminate the evolution of multi-drug resistant organisms. The distribution of nanoparticles in the body may be achieved probably by coating of the nanoparticles with certain serum components, attachment of antibodies, sulfoxide groups, and use of magnetic nanoparticles, etc. The delivery of the drugs has been enhanced by modifying the surface characteristics of the nanoparticle by selective and effective localization of pharmacologically active moiety at pre-selected target in therapeutic conditions. Then after the administrations, the nanoparticles are mainly taken by reticuloendothelial system. Hence, they are useful to carry drugs to the liver and to the cells that are phagocytically active. The nanocapsules and nanospheres, they are two important carrier molecules for using drug delivery. So in nanocapsule, the drug is confined to a cavity surrounded by a unique polymer membrane. Whereas in the nanospheres, they are matrix systems in which the drug is physically and uniformly dispersed. These are the ideal characteristics of nanoparticles, right? They should be simple and reproducible, must be cost effective, they have to have uniform drug release, they have to be active in vivo and in vitro, both in physical and chemical forms. They should not affect the non-target cells. Actually, these the cost effectiveness, then simplicity and reproducibility, then the uniform release of the drug, all these characters should be there in a nanoparticle. If all these are there only, we can select those items for this nanotechnology. Then the properties for drug delivery also, they should not be toxic, they should not be immunogenic. That is, some nanoparticles can induce the immune system to produce antibodies, which will be like autoimmune disease. Then it should not cause any inflammation. They should not be thrombogenic also, but they have to be biodegradable. The advantages of nanoparticles. What are the reasons why we are using these nanoparticles in medicine? They have controlled drug release. They have good protection of encapsulated drug, retention of the drug at the active site, targeted drug delivery via specific accumulation, extended therapeutic lifetime due to slow elimination, then broad therapeutic index. They have increased bioavailability. But there are certain disadvantages also. Once the treatment is started, it is very difficult to adjust the dosage. Then there is difficulty in productivity because they require sophisticated technology and skills. Then it is difficult to maintain the stability of the dosage form. It is again cost factor, it is costly. Then it is once the treatment is started, it is very difficult to stop the therapy. Then some are having cytotoxicity. In some, there is disturbance of autonomic values. So where all we can apply in medicine? It is widely used in cancer therapy, in intracellular targeting as vaccine adjuvant, in ocular delivery. It is used in DNA delivery as well as oligonucleotide delivery. It is used in immunoassays. It is used in radioimaging. It is used in targeted drug delivery to CNS system and also to other visceral organs. Also, it is used to detect infectious diseases. So these are some of the nano carriers for drug delivery system, like dendrimer, then silica gold nanoshell, then colloidal gold, then polymer protein conjugate, etc. There are few challenges in preparation of nanoparticles, like it is very difficult to prevent the drugs from biological degradation, and safety and efficacy also matters if they are not prepared according to the standard protocol. Again, it is a challenge. Then if the target site is not proper, there is the effective targeting is again a challenge. Then as I told previously, immunological challenge, that is some nanoparticles can induce the immune system to produce antibodies, which will cause autoimmune disease. Then product life extension is another challenge. Then the cost effectiveness. The route of administration of nanoparticles, there are various routes of administration. As like other drugs, these nanoparticles can also be applied topically, that is by ointments, or by intranasally. If the lung is the target organ, then it can be introduced intranasally, that is inhalation. Then sometimes through oral, some nanoparticles, nanomedicines are available as orally. Then it can be given as injections like intradermal or muscular or intravenous routes. And sometimes it can be kept as implants for selected targets, like in the inside the womb. So there are different types of nanoparticles for drug delivery. I have chosen 4 types of nanoparticles used for drug delivery system. One is polymer based nanoparticles, second is metal based nanoparticles, third is lipid based nanoparticles, and fourth is biological nanoparticles. We will be seeing one by one. So first we will see the polymer based nanoparticles. There are 3 types in polymer based nanoparticles. They can occur as natural polymers or semi-synthetic polymers or synthetic polymers. Under natural polymers, we have proteins and polysaccharides. Under semi-synthetic polymers, we have pseudo-latex and artificial latex obtained from dispersion of preformed polymers. Example, pseudo-latex of ethyl cellulose. We have synthetic polymers like pre-polymerized and polymerized form. The natural polymers, we have 2 types. One is proteins and polysaccharides. Under proteins, the gelatin, albumin, lectins, ligamins, and vicillin are coming as nanoparticles under proteins. Under polysaccharides, alginates, dextrin, chitosan, agarose, and pullulan are coming under polysaccharides as nanoparticles. Then synthetic polymers, there are 2 forms. One is pre-polymerized, the other is polymerized. In pre-polymerized, we have PECl, that is poly-E caprolactone, then PLA, it is polylactic acid, then PLGA, that is polylactocoglycolide, then polystyrene. Under polymerized variety, we have PICA, that is PICA, it is polyisobutyl cyanoacrylates, then PBCA, it is polybutyl cyanoacrylates, then PHCA, polyhexyl cyanoacrylates, and PMMA, it is polymethyl methacrylate. We can see few slides on preparation of the nanoparticles. So this slide shows the synthesis of metal-based nanoparticles. So the plant extract, which acts as a source of antimicrobial agent, is taken. We can take any other source, any other antimicrobial agent like antibiotic or antifungal, any source which, any substance which has antimicrobial agent can be taken, and it is added with a source of, that is metal ionic source of interest. Both are mixed together, and it is it undergoes biological reduction. The factors which we have to remember is appropriate pH, appropriate temperature, then appropriate reaction time, and the reaction, the concentrations. We need to keep all these in mind. Then we can see the techniques of preparation of polymer-based nanoparticles. Here there are three types. One is preformed polymers, then ionic chelation and polymerization. So we will see one or two methods. One is one method by preparation of nanoparticles by dispersion of preformed polymers. Here we have taken solvent evaporation as an example. This has again two types. One is nanoprecipitation, the other is emulsification, solvent diffusion. Under nanoprecipitation, again there are two techniques. One is sorting out and the other is by dialysis. Then under emulsification, solvent diffusion, it works on by superficial fluid technology. There is another method of production of nanoparticle by polymerization of monomers. Here again there are few techniques. One is by emulsion polymerization, mini emulsion polymerization, micro emulsion polymerization, then interfacial polymerization, and finally we have controlled living radical polymerization. Then after the production, we need to do certain evaluation parameters of nanoparticles. So how to find out the yield of nanoparticles? This can be found out by the following formula, that is amount of particle by amount of drug plus polymer into 100. This gives the percentage of yield of the nanoparticles produced. Then how to find out the drug content or surface entrapment or drug entrapment? It is calculated by W minus W by W into 100. The capital W is the total amount used in the preparation of nanoparticle. The small w is the amount of drug present in the suspension. Then particle size can be calculated by either spectrometry or dynamic light scattering or scanning electron microscope. The particle shape can be assessed by scanning electron microscopy. Then there is another parameter, zeta potential. This is a potential difference existing between the surface of a solid particle immersed in conducting liquid and the bulk of liquid. The surface charge of the nanoparticles is usually measured by zeta potential. Then comes the differential scanning calorimetry. Here this is used to determine the nature of the crystallinity within the nanoparticle through the measurement of glass and melting point temperature and their associated enthalpies. Finally, atomic force microscopy. So this offers ultra high resolution in particle size measurement, and it is based on physical scanning of sample at sub-micron level using a probe tip of atomic scale. So this technique provides the most accurate description of size and size distribution, and it requires non-mathematical calculation. So after that we need to do drug loading. This is done by two methods. One is by incubation method, other is by incorporation method. In the incorporation method, the drug is incorporated at the time of nanoparticle production, whereas in incubation method, absorbing the drug after the formation of the nanoparticles by incubating the carrier with a concentrated drug. So both the methods result in a solid solution of the drug in the polymers, solid dispersion of the drug in the polymer, then surface absorption of the drug, and chemical bonding of the drug in the polymer. Then we need to do drug release and release kinetic. So the release of the drug from the system, again it depends on three different parameters. One is release from the surface of the particle, then diffusion through the swollen rubbery matrix, and finally release due to erosion. So this is an example of drug delivery system of a topical application. So this is the skin, the topical either ointment or lotion, it is applied on the skin. So the nanoparticles having the drug, they enter the superficial layer, and the deep layer, once they reach the deep layer, the drugs are released from the nanoparticle. This method is the stimuli based delivery system. Here we use the internal or external stimuli for delivering the drugs, releasing the drugs from the nanoparticles. So these nanoparticles, once they reach the capillaries, from the capillaries they go to the target sites like brain, lungs, liver, heart, pancreas, or any cancer tissues. So once they are inside the target cells or tissues, the stimuli, either internal or external stimuli, are applied, like photons from the light source or magnetic field, pH or temperature, whatever it is, any stimuli we can choose. And the release can be either in the sustained, as a sustained release, or as pulsatile release, or as a simple diffusion or on-site release. Now we need to do the evaluation for release of the drug. So this is done in vitro only. There are few methods. One is side-by-side diffusion cells with artificial or biological membrane, then dialysis bag diffusion technique, then reverse dialysis bag diffusion technique, then agitation followed by ultracentrifugation or centrifugation, finally ultrafiltration or centrifugal ultrafiltration technique. Now we will see the metal-based nanoparticles which are active in infectious diseases. Okay, so there are silver-based nanoparticles, iron oxide-based nanoparticles, copper oxide-based nanoparticles, then zinc oxide nanoparticles, aluminum oxide-based nanoparticles, gold-based nanoparticles, titanium dioxide-based nanoparticles, and gallium-based nanoparticles. So we will see one by one. Silver-based nanoparticles, they are per se, that is without any antibiotics, they are effective against Escherichia coli, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, Staphylococcus aureus, Chlamydia trachomatis, Acinetobacter baumannii. These nanoparticles, silver-based nanoparticles, along with antibiotics also, they are effective against certain organisms. For example, with polymyxin B and rifampicin, they are active against Acinetobacter baumannii. With amoxicillin, they are effective against Escherichia coli. With quinolone and polypeptide, they are active against Salmonella typhimurium. With gentamicin and penicillin, they are effective against Actinobacillus pleuropneumoniae, then Pasteurella multocida. Then with either amoxicillin or azithromycin or clarithromycin or linezolid or vancomycin, they are effective against Staphylococcus aureus. With either cefazolin or mupirocin or gentamicin or neomycin or tetracycline or vancomycin, they are active against Pseudomonas aeruginosa or Escherichia coli. Then iron oxide-based nanoparticles, they are effective against E. coli, Proteus vulgaris, then Staphylococcus aureus. This is without any antibiotic. So with erythromycin, they are effective against Streptococcus pneumoniae. With Punica granulatum peel extract, they are effective against Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Then with chitosan coated iron particles, they are effective against Salmonella enteritidis. Then copper oxide based nanoparticles, they are effective against Bacillus subtilis, Salmonella cholerae, Klebsiella pneumoniae, Salmonella typhimurium, Enterobacter aerogens, then Staphylococcus aureus, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, Lactobacillus viridis. Then comes gold nanoparticles. So gold nanoparticles without any antibiotics, they are effective against E. coli, Klebsiella, most of the gram-negative and gram-positive uropathogens. Uropathogens means the organisms isolated from urine samples of urinary tract infected patients. Then most of the multi-drug resistant organisms. Then gold nanoparticles are also active against Staphylococcus aureus, Salmonella typhi and Salmonella typhimurium. Then with gentamicin, they are active against Escherichia coli. With cefaclor, they are active against E. coli and Staphylococcus aureus. Then with ampicillin, they are effective against Staph aureus. Then titanium and gallium nanoparticles. The titanium dioxide nanoparticles are active against methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus, Streptococcus mutans, Escherichia coli. The gallium nanoparticles are active against mycobacteria, especially Mycobacterium tuberculosis, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, and Francisella tularensis. So these nanoparticles, they are not only effective against bacteria, but they are effective against some viruses also. For example, for HIV, silver nanoparticle, they inhibit the CD4 dependent virion binding, fusion, and infectivity. The gallium nanoparticle inhibit the viral protease. Gold nanoparticle inhibit the viral entry. Carbohydrate coated gold nanoparticle conjugated with abacavir and lamivudine, they inhibit the viral replication. For herpes, thin nanoparticles traps the HSV1 before entry into the host cell. Then silver nanoparticle inhibit the viral replication. Polyurethane condom coated with silver nanoparticles, they inhibit the HSV1 and HSV2 infections. Then gold nanoparticle inhibit viral attachment and penetration into the cells. For hepatitis, especially hepatitis B virus, silver nanoparticle, they inhibit the production of HBV DNA. Then iron oxide nanoparticle inhibit viral replication. Cuprous nanoparticle inhibit the viral entry. Gold nanoparticle, they produce targeted delivery of interferon alpha. Then for influenza, gold nanoparticle is effective against influenza A. Silver nanoparticle inhibit the host receptor binding sites of the virus. Now we will see the third type, lipid-based nanoparticles. These lipid-based nanoparticles, mainly they are useful in treatment of cancer, that is malignancy. There are three types. One is liposomes, the other is solid lipid nanoparticles. The third variety is nanostructured lipid carriers. These the details I am not going in detail. Final is the biological nanoparticles, which are the nanoparticles which are occurring in nature. They are the examples are inorganic ash, soot, sulfur, calcium carbonate, minerals like manganese oxide, silica, silicate, aluminum, etc. So in our hospital, we have done few research work in nanoparticles. That is, in 2017, we have done few researches and they got published in 2018. The first study, we have antifungal activity. We have seen the antifungal activity of curcumin silver nanoparticles against fluconazole resistant isolates of Candida species. Here, we have made curcumin silver nanoparticles according to the standard protocol and tested against 21 fluconazole resistant Candida strains, Candida albicans 5, Candida tropicalis 5, Candida krusei 5, Candida glabrata 3, Candida parapsilosis 2 and Candida kefir 1. Apart from curcumin silver nanoparticles, we have tested curcumin antifungal activity separately and silver nanoparticle antifungal properties separately. So coming to the results, the minimum inhibitory concentration to the fungal strains was determined by broth dilution and agar diffusion method. So in both methods, curcumin silver nanoparticles when compared with curcumin separately and silver nanoparticles separately showed excellent antifungal activity. The MIC result is as follows. For Candida glabrata, it is 31.2 micrograms per ml. For Candida albicans, it is 62.5 micrograms per ml. For Candida tropicalis, it is 250 micrograms per ml. For parapsilosis and krusei, it is 125 micrograms per ml. And for Candida kefir, it is 62.5 micrograms per ml. So here, except for tropicalis, all the other species showed excellent antifungal activity for curcumin silver nanoparticles. The second study is on evaluation of antibacterial activity of zinc oxide nanoparticle against biofilm producing methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus. So the zinc oxide nanoparticles there was freshly prepared according to the standard protocol and tested against 50 strains of methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus isolated from patient samples by minimum inhibitory concentration and minimum bactericidal concentration. So the MIC and MBC values are shown in this picture. For all the strains, the average ratio of the minimum inhibitory concentration indicated that zinc nanoparticles have a very good bactericidal and bacteriostatic effect on the tested bacteria. So the zinc nanoparticles, after its adherence to the surface of the cell membrane, results in disturbance in its respiration as it interferes with the enzymes of the respiration chain of bacteria. This is the mechanism of action of zinc oxide nanoparticle. As the concentration of nanoparticle increases, the zone of inhibition also increases. So the third study is on evaluation of antibacterial activity of silver nanoparticles against methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus and detection of virulence factors like nuclease, phosphate and biofilm production. Here again, silver nanoparticles were prepared freshly and it was tested on 30 strains of methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus isolated from patient samples by minimum inhibitory concentration and minimum bactericidal concentration. The results, MSc and MBC values of silver nanoparticles against MRSA were found to be in the range of 12.5 to 50 micrograms per ml, showing a very good bacteriostatic and bactericidal activity of silver nanoparticles. So these are some of the commercially available nanoparticles, nano antibiotics. Some are available as IV preparation, some as IM, some as topical or subcutaneous or oral preparations for treating the antifungal, treating for the fungal infections, viral infections or bacterial infections. These are my references, and thank you. Once again, I thank the organizers for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Have a good day.